People sometimes ask me for more affordable boats. Well, I found you something really high on the affordable scale today. Look at this. This is a Trader 41+2. Now there are two big numbers to bear in mind with this boat. The first is that it was built in 1990, so it's 35 years old, and to be fair, you know, it's had a bit of life. It is somewhat more dated than the modern stuff, but the other big number is that this is a 42-foot 3-cabin boat for under £100,000, and the space on this is quite incredible. So yes, of course, it's an older boat, and you'll see that as we go around, but the return on that, if you're looking at something for a liveaboard and just the maximum amount of space that you can possibly get for the money, this is astonishing. We'll have a quick look at the outside here before we go on board. Now, of course, back in 1990, you didn't get extended bathing platforms, you didn't get cranes, you didn't get lowering platforms. What you got was davits, and that's what these fellas here are. So they're basically winches. You can see the handles for them there. You release the catch, wind them down, and it winds your tender down into the water. It's much more basic, but it's really, really simple, and they just keep on working. So, you know, on a boat of this age, stuff like that is actually a benefit rather than a hindrance. And the other thing to mention is it's actually quite low. Again, era of the boat, we have got the steps on the side to make it a little bit easier to get on board, but you know, you're waist height here, whereas most 40-foot boats these days are shoulder height. We'll head on and around and in. I think I'll show you the inside first of all, and then we'll take a wander around the deck, but there is a lot to look at on this. But the first thing to mention, well, not the first thing, because we've mentioned lots of things, but I'll edit that out later. One of the important things to mention is the fact that it is an aft cabin layout. So where we're stood here, the accommodation goes right the way under here and right the way to the edges, and that's what gives it so much space. Let's go on in, and I'll show you what this is all about. Now, these Traders back in 1990, they weren't the cutting edge of interior design even then. And so today we've got the louvered doors and we've got the balustrades like this. I mean, it is of its age, but we've got to focus on the space in here, because look at it, so much room. And these big windows are great as well. There's a lot of light into here. We've got the blinds that drop down over these as well. This is what I'm talking about. This is a big, substantial boat. Without doubt. Got a fridge up here. These are just bits of storage about the place, like this. And we've got the access panels underneath here for the engines. I'll show you those, of course. No carpets in this one. These were all wood all the way through. And if we head on forward then, look at this navigation space over here. You don't often see space for a proper chart these days, do you? That's what that's for. It's also got the Raymarine Axiom plotter here as well. There's one of those up on the top. There's a few new bits actually, so that's quite new. There's a Fusion stereo in here as well. Again, that's pretty modern. So it's had a few little upgrades as time's gone on. And then the helm is here. What's nice about this is the side door right next to it. So really good ventilation through the boat, but really good access, because this is very much an owner-operator size of boat. And you'll notice that we've got 4 lever engine controls. So these are cable controls. These operate your throttles. So push it forward, you increase the revs, and these take you in and out of gear. So forward for a head, back for a stern. Now, again, much simpler than the modern electronic stuff. It's a bit heavier to use, but again, when you're talking older boats, that's not a bad thing, because it's all about less to go wrong. And these are just really, really simple. And actually, these Morse controls are really nice. They're very precise. There's an autopilot on this one as well, and again, that's a new one. It's a new Raymarine. And then the old school Volvo Penta engine instrumentation that all boats of this era seem to have. And then up here we've got the speed on that one and depth, I would guess. Here we go. Is on that one. A VHF radio is up there as well. But yeah, it's of its era, and there's no getting around that. It is what it is. But it is roomy, isn't it? Look at this. That's fantastic. Let's head on forward. We've got 2 cabins down here. I'll take you right up to the front first of all. So guest cabin is here. There is an infill for this. So if you want this as a double, that's what this lip here is for. There's a section that drops into there, and and a cushion, of course, and that gives you a double bed up here. But even with that in place, you've still got the footprint here behind it because it comes across to here. So you've got space to get changed. Obviously, with that out, it gives you a load more space and it gives you the V-berth there. We've got the hatch overhead as well. Again, it's of its era with the smaller porthole windows compared to the big hull windows we get now. But that's what you get at this age. It is what it is. There's hanging locker in here. That's in this one, like so. And then there's bits of storage dotted around here and here and here and so forth. That one there, let's have a little look. Yeah, that's through to the anchor locker. As was the style in the day. That's all deck access these days. Good, so that's that cabin, but there's another cabin which is just over on this side. And these are two singles. In fact, the infill you can see here, that's the infill to go into the V-berth in the forward cabin, and that's the cushion for it, just up above it. But again, we've got hanging locker in here, like this. And then we've got two single bunk beds, one above the other, he says, stating the absolutely obvious. Again, nice hatch overhead. So we've got some nice light in here. And again, not a bad footprint really. And these both share the day heads, that's opposite. And that's like a wet room. So you've got the shower here. There's the drain on the floor, and then we've got the sea toilet in there as well. And the sink, and the mirror, and the mirrorwave. There we go. Bit of storage underneath there as well. This one is giving us access to the back of the helm station. So getting to all of your wiring and bits and pieces is all got at from there. Good. So that's all of that. The other thing to show you down here is the distribution panel. That is on here. So that's all the circuit breakers for the DC system and the AC system. All across there. So that's all splendid. That one there, incidentally, is the heating system. Eberspacher heating. But where this boat gets spectacular, I think, is when we go aft. Come and check this out. First thing we find, a really nice galley down here. So proper, it's domestic stuff, isn't it? We've got the oven, we've got the grill, 4-burner gas hob, and there's even space down here for a washing machine. And then there's a microwave up here as well, bits of storage tucked around across the back and underneath. But yeah, that's a decent space. Again, going back to what I said when we came on board, if you look at this from a liveaboard proposition, that's actually quite a nice usable space. But this is, I think, what really sells this boat. Now we're back under this aft deck. Look at this. This is huge in here. For a 40-foot boat, look at the size of it. It's impressive, isn't it? A lot of woodwork in these, as you can see. Imagine what SeaTag would do with this. Hanging locker in here. Nice little dressing area or desk area. Somewhere to work from home. Work from on board, to be precise. Years ago, I sold a boat to a guy, and he said that he travelled quite a lot, and he said he'd sneak down to his boat, and then if anybody asked him, he'd say he was away on business. And I said, you should call the boat On Business. I was only joking, but he did. Called it On Business. Where are you? I'm on business. Okay. Wardrobe. More storage down here. And then we have the ensuite. So this, of course, is just for this cabin. There we go. And intriguingly, check this out. This is a bath. It's a small bath, but it's a bath, what they call a hip bath. And then you've got the shower in there as well. So that is a separate shower area, of course, because this closes off with this little sliding fellow here. Intriguing, isn't it? And the loo and the basin and so forth. A bit more storage up behind that mirror there. There we are. Close that one across. But yeah, that to me, that's the big news on this boat. Let's come right over into this corner. Look at that. Remarkable. And we're right at the back of the boat here. These windows here are actually in the transom. In fact, you can see the tender hanging from those davits. Brilliant. Okay, that's that one. Let's take a wander around the outside. I want to show you the flybridge. Let's just stop taking that galley again. It's a lot of boat, isn't it? There's Jack the Sack with us today. I think Jack the Sack and Maggie the Baggy have carved up territories. I think Jack the Sack now is pretty much UK based and Maggie the Baggy's international. It's just how they've carved it up between them. I don't get involved anymore. Let's head out this way, I think, onto the aft deck. We'll take a loop around the decks and we will have a look on top as well. So yeah, big area here. Of course, you can put freestanding furniture out here, tables and chairs and so forth. Also, this one's got the hardtop on, I think. Let's point the actual camera at it, there we go. I think that was an option. I don't think that was standard. I haven't seen that normally on these, but the nice thing about it, well, first of all, it gives you lots of shade, but secondly, it allows you to enclose this area really easily with these canopies that wrap all the way around it, which in the UK is a very, very nice idea. Let's come right back over here again. You're sensing that footprint, aren't you? It's big, isn't it? I'll take you onto the flybridge and then we'll go forward and round. Again, because it's an aft deck rather than aft cockpit. So on an aft cockpit boat, the aft cockpit would be on the same level as the saloon. So you'd see where the floor is there. That would come out, you'd have the cockpit here, and there'd be a lot of steps to go up to the flybridge. But because we've come up these steps, it means that it's only 3, well, maybe 4 more steps up to get to the flybridge, which is rather nice for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it makes it really accessible. And secondly, it links these two areas together. So people up here and people down here, they're not in completely different parts of the boat. And this is actually a pretty good size. It's something that does sometimes suffer a little bit on aft cabin layouts. This gets squeezed, but this doesn't. This is good. That is the hatch that's over those steps that came up, so you can see the hinges in the back there. You can tilt that one up to give you a bit better access. And then we've got the seating all the way around. The helm seat is here. And those lovely vertical ship's wheels. Look at this. Fantastic. And again, we've got the 4 lever controls. So we've got gear engagement on this side, throttles are on this side. And again, the old Volvo Penta instrumentation. There's the new Raymarine on here as well. We can touch that one there. And that'll take us into charts. Thusly, let's look a bit flickier on there, it's not in real life. A bit more storage up here, and then again you've got your depth and your speed and so forth, and that will cover over like so. And the view from here, because you're well forward and you're well up, is pretty good. We're down on the River Dart. This is down at Gampton. That's Ditsom over there, and that goes on upriver that away. Has also got a framework for a bimini up here, and there's a Raymarine radar on this one. And the other interesting thing is it looks very much to me like this arch will fold. So if you want to take this boat inland, you can see where it's split there, and it looks like that pin comes out and it hinges there. Having said that, I don't think that would work with the hard top. That's probably more for when you haven't got the hard top on. So that's probably in this boat, it's probably fixed, but there we are. You get the idea. Right, let's head on around. Some pretty decent side decks on here actually. So it's a nice boat to walk around. That's that side door. We'll go back in that way in a minute next to the helm. And then up here, again, just another nice big area. That's the hatch that we saw over that forward cabin. And right up onto the bow, we've got the anchor winch. We've got the anchor, of course, on the little bowsprit there. And that's how she looks from here. It's a solid looking boat, isn't it? Lovely. Right, last thing to discuss then is the engines. Here's some dogs going nuts somewhere. We'll come back in this way, I think. We've been around everywhere. And then the engines are under the floor. Now to get to these, it's a case of lifting up these hatches. Let me see whether I can do that whilst holding a GoPro very well. So that comes up like that. Let's lift that one right out and put it over here for a moment. And then this one will lift in the same way. Now there's two engines in here. Of course the hatches that I'm stood on will come up as well. If I drop the camera down, you'll see there's another engine over on that side. And they're a pair of Volvo Penta TAMD 61 engines. They are 306 horsepower each. Now again, we're back to an era of pre-electronics, pre-high pressure fuel loads and all that kind of thing. They're just a simple 6-cylinder turbo diesel. In fact, you can see the turbo at the back there. So a nice basic engine, which actually, again, when you're looking at older boats, is not a bad thing, because the simpler you keep them, the easier they are to maintain. They're straight shaft drive. Can't quite see those from here, but there are shafts disappearing out down the back of the engine there somewhere, and they connect to props underneath, of course. Looks like the battery box is in the middle. Let's have another look down onto that side. It's not a bad engine space actually. They're nice and widely spaced, and you can get right around the front of those, and you can see you've got the checker plate to get on the back as well. Performance wise, of course, it's not a fast boat. It's a big voluminous boat, so you're looking at about, I think it's about 16 knots flat out and cruising at 12, but it's that sort of boat. It's more the trawler yacht style. The only figures I don't have is range. I'm going to make an educated guess at about 200 miles with a bit of reserve. That would be typical for this kind and style of boat, but I don't know for sure. So if that is of a concern to you, then check with a broker. I'm sure they'll give you more accurate figures than I could. Let's just lower it down that way as well. There we are. Volvo Penta. Excellent. Right, I'm going to drop that hatch back down. As I say, if you're not holding a GoPro, then the whole operation becomes a lot easier, and you can get these ones up on this side as well. Let's pop that fella back. And that, I think, is a fairly comprehensive tour of what is probably the greatest size to price ratio of any boat we've had on the channel. As I say, temper it with the fact it's an older boat. That is unquestionably true. You know, it's 35 years old. But what a lot of space you get for the money by going to that sort of age. Right, let's head back out. I think we'll finish up on the front, as is traditional. On the bow, I should say. And I will spin that little fella around. And I will say massive thanks to One Marine. They've got this one for sale, so I will put a link to them in the description. And huge thanks, as ever, to you guys for watching. Let me know what you think of that one. Let me know whether I should be doing more of these on Aquaholic, and we'll catch you on one of these real soon. Take care. Bye-bye.